We were talking just with Luke Johnson about the future of the New Orleans Saints. And anytime somebody brings up the future, obviously you're talking about the vacant head coaching position, but it's the quarterback position as well, right? You gave Derek Carr a huge contract 2 years ago, and the results have been mixed, up and down, however the nicest way you want to put it, for his inconsistent play. And the Saints don't have a ton of wins because of Derek Carr. He's been in and out of the lineup with injuries. You've rolled with Jake Haener. You've rolled with Spencer Rattler. Now, neither of them have had a ton of help along the way because you're so injured across the board. Beck, I want to ask you this real quick. If I asked you right now, yes or no, is Jake Haener the future of the New Orleans Saints, yes or no?
No.
I agree, absolutely not. Is Spencer Rattler the future of the New Orleans Saints?
Probably not.
Probably not. So, again, I agree with you there. It hasn't seen a ton of promise, but to Luke's point, he hasn't had a lot to work with. He had a makeshift offensive line really up until the last 2 or 3 weeks. He doesn't have a ton of weapons to throw to, but it's kind of been mixed. You know, we don't think so. Everyone's kind of holding out hope that the Saints may have found a steal in the 5th round. So what do you do at quarterback in the future? Well, Matt Holder of Bleacher Report, he believes that the Saints should draft a quarterback in this year's draft. And obviously they're not going to be one of these top 5 picks that can get the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the draft. Matt Holder throws out an interesting name that not a lot of people have talked about. He mentions Clemson quarterback Cade Klubnik. Now, a lot of people are going to take pause on that and say, well, you know, Klubnik's been inconsistent in his college career, and for sure. He was probably thrown into the fire a little bit before he was ready as a freshman, but look at what he's done this year. He led them to the playoff, and yeah, they got eliminated by Texas. I understand that, but Cade Klubnik, 3,600 yards, 36 touchdowns, 6 interceptions for him this year at Clemson. That's a really good season. The problem is Cade Klubnik is far from a finished product. Also, it's not official yet on what he's going to do as far as, is he going to enter the draft? Is he not going to enter the draft? I personally think it would be wise for Klubnik to go back to school for Clemson another year, unless you think you were a bona fide first-round pick, because we saw those receivers he was throwing to, right? They started getting chemistry more at the end of the year. All those guys are freshmen and sophomore. They're likely all coming back. The ACC being down, Klubnik coming back for another year with these young receivers, all the talent around him, he'd have to be a favorite to win the ACC, to make the college football playoff again, and potentially enter his name into the Heisman Trophy conversation. So I actually think Klubnik should come back. But let's say it's not Klubnik. Let's say it's somebody else. What this article states is, as far as Matt Holder goes, it would be wise for Mickey Loomis to move on from Derek Carr this offseason, seeing as the Saints are currently projected to begin the offseason $63.8 million over the cap, and making Carr a post-June 1 cut would save them about $34 million. Also, he's 34 years old in the spring. Now, that all sounds fine, but when you take the dead cap into consideration, Adam Schefter actually broke this down a few days ago. First off, Derek Carr has a no-trade clause. He would have to waive that no-trade clause. I personally don't see Derek Carr doing that. The Saints are already on the books for $48.4 million of dead money. That's with the Marshawn Lattimore trade, cutting Michael Thomas, getting rid of Jameis Winston. That leads the NFL. So $48.4 million in dead money heading into the offseason. If you cut Derek Carr, that would put you at almost $100 million in dead cap money. He mentions that this team needs a lot in free agency. It would be incredibly difficult to offer competitive offers in free agency when you have $100 million tied up in money to players that aren't even on the team anymore. Also, you have a coaching vacancy. Now, ideally, you would bring in a coach and a quarterback at the same time. Let them kind of, throw them both into the fire in year one, kind of learn on the fly together. That kind of is in Derek Carr's disadvantage, because if the Saints are going to hire a new head coach, maybe you want to bring in a quarterback. But as far as head coaching jobs that are coming open, which one's going to be the most desirable for these coaching candidates, with or without Derek Carr? Let's say you get rid of Derek Carr. Do you want to go to a team that has no certainty as far as the future of their quarterback position? All of your stars, quote unquote, on your team are aging, and you have $100 million tied up in dead money for players that aren't even on the team anymore. That's honestly not that desirable to me. Putting Derek Carr back into the equation It's not great at the same time, but you still have a veteran quarterback. You can say, okay, I'll come in, I'll draft my guy who I don't necessarily think is going to be the starter day one. He can come in, he can learn under a veteran in Derek Carr. I can kind of steady the ship year one, and then year two, boom, no excuses. I got my guy into the building. I've revamped everything. This team is more than just a quarterback away from competing. Now, obviously, a quarterback helps a lot of things, right? A good quarterback can mask a lot of deficiencies on your team. This team is a lot more than just a quarterback away. So, as much as I would like for the Saints to make some move and say, hey, we got our quarterback, he's our hotshot guy for the future, he's a can't-miss player. First off, there are no such thing as can't-miss players. I always firmly believe that. And secondly, again, with that dead cap money, it would be $100 million if you cut Derek Carr. How desirable is this job at that point to potential coaching candidates? Look at the jobs that are coming open. The Giants, in all likelihood, could come open. The New York Jets are open. What about the Raiders? Do they give Antonio Pierce another year? Do they not? What about the Jacksonville Jaguars? Because you haven't been good. Trevor Lawrence seems like he may have degressed a little bit, but maybe a change in coach will turn that around. Trevor Lawrence still a young player, still very talented. He had that good second year where he led his team to the playoffs, actually upset the Chargers in that playoff game. There are a lot of teams out there that are going to be looking for head coaches. As the organization of the New Orleans Saints, you have to pitch to coaches. Coaches are pitching themselves to you as to why you should hire them. You also have to pitch yourself to potential candidates why they should join this organization and not a different organization that may have younger stars, that may have more cap space. I'm all for moving on from Derek Carr because that experiment looks like it has failed. But at the same time, how desirable does that job become if Derek Carr is not on that roster and you have all that dead cap money? You can't sign free agents. You're not going to be high enough in the draft to get a top 5 pick. You don't really have a ton of young stars. Chris Olave's future is certainly up in the air. You signed Kamara to a long-term deal, but he's aging. Kendre Miller, we still don't know about. And then on defense, Alontae Taylor looks great. Paulson Adebo, awesome. You got Brian Brzee on the defensive line, but outside of those guys, Jordan's getting older. DeMario Davis is getting older. Tyrann Mathieu is getting older. You don't really have an identity on this team, and without a quarterback in place, I don't know how desirable this job becomes to potential coaching candidates.
Hey, it's Hunt. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button, leave your comments in the section below, and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.